what was your reaction to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade?
Mhm. I was upset by it. I was devastated. I was thinking about the Black girls and women who have attended our Black Girls and Women Matter Town Hall and how unfortunate this is for them. I looked up recently the statistics in Guilford County. The Guilford County Health Department published in 2021 about what happened in 2019. And there were 87 Black girls between the ages of 15 to 19 who chose to have an abortion. And I'm just thinking about the ripple impacts that that would be for them if this happened in North Carolina, that they were not able to choose to have this healthcare service in a safe way, that it would continue to devastate us. So my first reaction was frustration, confusion, upset, because I've lived my whole life with this option available to me. So I had to talk to my elders to hear the stories that they knew of women who died when trying to seek an abortion before Roe versus Wade was enacted. So it's just a lot of emotions, but a lot of being scared as well. So those are some of my initial reactions.
For me, I'll say I was overcome with a lot of grief. I've worked and supported a lot of pregnant people, a lot of Black pregnant people, especially in the South, specifically in Guilford County. And I've supported a lot of people through forced pregnancies because their partners didn't believe or support an abortion, because their parents didn't believe or support an abortion, or because of systematic barriers, they didn't have access to it, whether it was that they couldn't afford it, they couldn't get time off work, they couldn't find childcare. And I say grief because I've spent time with those folks and I know the things that they lose because they've been forced into parenthood and pregnancy with no choice and no options. And also just grief because being pregnant and Black is a radical act in this year, in this time. We see that Black folks have a higher risk of dying from pregnancy-related causes. And not to be morbid, I'm not saying because of abortion, we're gonna lose Black people. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I do know a good handful of Black folks who choose to have an abortion because they're afraid to be pregnant, because everything they see about Black people in the media right now is that we die when we're pregnant. Or, and another part of Black maternal death that's not talked about a lot is the postpartum perinatal mental health that comes with pregnancy and parenting. There are people who have been very vocal that they have abortions because, and most of the people who have abortions are already parents, because they need to be here to care and raise for the children that they have, especially Black children, because we know that parents are the ones who tend to keep their children safest. We don't really have to, we can't depend on the schools, we can't depend on, too many other places to keep our children safe the ways that we do. And there are a lot of people who are like, if I have another baby and I have to go through postpartum depression again, I don't know that I'll be here to care for any of my children. And it's, like I said, being pregnancy is a radical act, but so is being Black and having an abortion, because it goes against the things that so many people have in mind for what we should or shouldn't do with our bodies.
Awesome. So my next question is, how does this decision disproportionately impact Black women?
Well, this decision disproportionately impacts Black women because of the numbers of Black women that need safe healthcare and quality healthcare. We still are trying to seek not only access to quality healthcare, but the full quality healthcare for the entire duration from prenatal visits through the pregnancy and delivery. There are more Black women who are dying in childbirth. There are more Black women who are not having access to the prenatal visits. There are more Black women who are not accessing mental health services after they have a child. And so this decision is going to impact so many Black families, as Brandi was saying, about the depression that is felt by our communities, the anger and the frustration and what to do, the hopelessness may continue to set in when we're already faced with so many oppressions and so many healthcare inequities. So that is a concern that I have. And so it's going to have a ripple effect. So not only is it going to affect how we are individually feeling and how our families are feeling, but we need more access to Medicaid. So North Carolina is still in the process of trying to expand Medicaid and get healthcare services for all of our families that are having lower income. It's also going to impact our school systems. There are a lot of children, Black children, who are in the foster care system, and there are not as many families certified to be foster families that represent how many children need families. And that is a problem in Guilford County. So that's going to impact families, that's going to impact the school system. So then the teachers are going to feel this weight of how to manage these children that have, they need more foundational support. So it's going to continue to have ripple effects on Black women and families.
I co-sign everything Christina just said. I'll also say it's going to impact this next generation who is essentially going to come up in a reproductive time in their lives where they don't even have choice or access. It is very wild for me at 31 to be able to say like, oh, I lived in a time when abortion was legal. Like that is wild for me to have to say that. But, you know, I think about, you know, I have a child who will be going to college soon. And like now the conversation is, are you going to pick a college in a state where you can access an abortion in college if you need one? Because we know that when it comes to like who has some of the hardest times accessing any kind of health care, but especially abortion care, it is marginalized people. It is Black people. It is brown people. It is queer, trans, non-binary folks. So the, you know, as Christina said, the ripple is gonna go through communities and go through identities, and the impact is gonna really be decades of undoing what the Supreme Court just did, but also decades of Black people healing and recovering from not having bodily autonomy, and what's going to come next of a lot of the reproductive coercion to get on certain birth controls that they might not be comfortable with. I'm seeing a lot of young Black people my age have conversations about tubal ligation, about, you know, having concerns about having different forms of birth control, long-acting reversible contraceptives, things that they normally wouldn't have put in their bodies before that they're going to now because they are afraid of getting pregnant and not being able to access an abortion. And lastly, I'll say, you know, Sister Song has a phenomenal definition of like what reproductive justice is, but there are a lot of Black folks in particular who choose if, when, and how they become parents because of the violence that happens in our communities. A part of reproductive justice is being able to raise our children in safe communities. And now people aren't going to have an option. And that's the hardest part, you know? So it's especially Black parents where we're constantly having conversations about, you know, I had to have the talk with my kid and it's not the sex talk, it's the police interaction talk, or the this is why you can't do this in school conversation. And there are people who know that they're not prepared or ready to have those conversations and care for children in the communities that we're given at the moment. So I think the ripple is going to be not just bodily, but communal. It's going to be mental, you know, like Christina said. So, yeah.
And then my last question is, you know, what's next? What should Black families start doing now that this law has been overturned?
One of the things I think Black families need to do now that this law has been overturned is continue to stay informed of what impacts this is going to have for our families, what impacts it's going to have for our systems. We need to continue to organize and strategize, not just birthing people, but non-birthing people need to speak out about what this devastating impact is making on our families and communities, and continue to connect with the organizations that are doing this work. So Brandi mentioned Sister Song, there's the African American Policy Forum, there is a Black Mamas Matter Alliance. There are several organizations that are speaking out and already in place to support what advocacy looks like, so that people don't have to feel exhausted just being on their own. You're not by yourself. There is community. There are organizations that are doing this work, and we're going to have to speak out. We're going to have, you know, take the time to restore ourselves from the emotions we're feeling, and then organize to advocate, because there are some things that are going on in North Carolina's legislation that we need to speak out on and vote. We need to make sure that people are voting, so that we have people representing us that are defending what is best for our health.
I will say Black folks in this moment be radical, have the transformative conversations with our families, with our communities and loved ones that we would normally identify as taboo. It's important that people are getting accurate sex education with no shame or stigma attached. It's important that people are informed on the actual legal status of abortion, what abortion actually is and isn't. Because the reality is a lot of people don't know what an abortion is until they have one. And it's like any other form of reproductive health care. I've written about it. Nobody prepared me for my first pap smear. I had no clue what I was walking into. I had no clue what I was walking into for my first mammogram. And it's because so many, essentially sometimes as Black folks, we don't talk about these things because they're private matters. But it's important that Black folks get loud about this. I mentioned reproductive justice. It's an entire framework that was built by Black women because they were very adamant that there's more to our reproductive experiences than abortion. And it is an essential part of our experiences as people who can or might become parents. So I also urge Black folks to tap into a lot of the resources. Christina named some great organizations. There are great books that are out there. Killing the Black Body by Dorothy Roberts is a book that I think every Black person should read. Mine is sitting on the couch. Killing the Black Body is a book that every Black person should read. It teaches us how we got here, where we are, and how we can get free and experience reproductive liberation. And it's essential, I think, right now that Black folks, Black parents, Black families, Black children are being educated on really the impacts of this, what happened in the past to Black folks who couldn't access abortion, what's happened in the past when our elders, when our ancestors were forced into pregnancies, and what that really meant and what that looked like, and the ways that a lot of us are recovering from being born into families that were not ready to be families. But that it wasn't due to our negligence, it was due to the systems that are put in place to make our lives harder and harm us. So yeah, and plug into the abortion folks here. I mean, the Carolina Abortion Fund is the group in the Carolinas that provide practical support. They pay for procedures. And not just that, it's if you need to pay a babysitter to have an abortion, if you have to take time off work, they will give you, they will try to compensate you for your time you have to take off. Because people shouldn't have to choose between feeding their kids, paying their electricity, or accessing healthcare. And then also know that the local clinic, A Woman's Choice, is the one place in Greensboro where people can get abortions. And that it's important to be informed of what's happening at that clinic, just so that folks feel empowered if and when they need to visit.
Anything else that you two would like to add that I might not have asked you, like when the story airs, that you want our viewers to take home with them?
All I'll say is just to stay in community, as Brandi was saying, stay in conversation, ask those radical questions intergenerationally. So we need to have, conversations with our elders, conversations with our children in a whole new way. So being open, willing to be vulnerable, to talk about these things and how it's impacting you, because when you have the courage to be vulnerable, other people will have the courage to step up and speak their truth as well.
I'll say just even the way that data is, but also just for me being in this work, everybody loves somebody who has had an abortion. And sometimes they don't even know that, but it is important that folks are mindful in how they speak on this issue. They don't know who's listening. They don't know who's watching. And it's important that people identify themselves as a safe space, as a safe resource for if and when they need an abortion. Because oftentimes what I see, especially with young Black folks who need abortions, is they don't know how to go to somebody in the community for support and for care. They're oftentimes left to have abortions by themselves. Abortion funds and clinics are here, but we are strangers to some of these people. And it's important that people know that they have loved ones, that they have relatives, friends, whomever. And now even more than ever, because everything about access is deemed as unsafe right now, as, oh, illegal, oh, this. But it's important that people, if I got pregnant tomorrow and I needed an abortion, I know 20 Black women in particular in Greensboro I could call right now to hold my hand and support me through it. And that is a privilege that I know a lot of people do not have. But I know a lot of us try to use our social medias, our roles both at work and at home. My daughter, her friends know, if you ever need an abortion, if you ever get pregnant, there's a mom in the friend group who is a resource, my cousins, my nieces, whomever. And it's important that other people identify themselves that way so that the people they love, when it's time and if they need an abortion, they can go to them.